Hello, I'm Claire Jewitt, and this is the diary of an orange cat. The diary entries of a thoughtful, slightly neurotic ginger cat named Weasley, written from a small harbour community in New Zealand. This episode is called An Abundance of Caution. There are some cats who, when faced with a problem, carefully think things through before arriving at a sensible conclusion. Serafina, despite trying very hard and having the very best of intentions, is not one of those cats. And now, Weasley's diary. Over the years, our mindfulness meetings have attracted all sorts of unexpected visitors. Dogs, chickens, even a breakfast show host. But when I heard that Serafina had invited experts to address us, I began to suspect that things had gone a little too far. In my opinion, experts have no place whatsoever poking their noses into our mindfulness meetings. Monday, 14th of March, 2022. Ron arrived at my house this morning and breathlessly told Squeak and me that Serafina required us to attend an emergency meeting this evening at her house on Waipapa Avenue. She said she's got something very important to announce and she wants to do it from a new podium rather than on top of the rusty wheelbarrow under your deck, he explained. So which one is the Podium of Truth? I asked, remembering that Serafina had used the term when referring to the rusty wheelbarrow at our previous meeting. Whichever one she's speaking from, I suppose, since she claims to be the single source of truth. We all looked confused as Ron continued. Evidently, she's arranged a couple of guest speakers who are experts in the field to give us advice. Experts in the field? Are they good mouses then? I asked, even though I thought I knew the answer. This was all getting rather annoying. What had started out as a small group of cats meeting under the deck at my house on Wednesday evenings was turning into a series of usually urgent meetings attended by every man and his dog. And I mean dog literally, since some of the meetings were taking place at Serafina's house, and her doggy sister, Madeline, was usually in attendance, leaping around like an idiot, while Serafina made endless announcements about changes we all needed to make that usually never eventuated. To be honest, the mindfulness meetings probably weren't much better, but at least they were a lot more fun. Who are these speakers then? I asked, genuinely curious. Anything would be better than another evening of listening to Serafina rehash yet another TV binge, where it was obvious she'd fallen asleep and missed the key points of whatever it was she'd been watching. She didn't say, but I think one of them might be your big brother Winston, replied Ron. Winston, I replied, hopeful that this meeting might not be quite as turgid as some of the previous ones we'd had to sit through. Winston, Serafina and I shared the same parents, but were from different litters. Winston was the elder statesman and had become a self-appointed advisor to Serafina, who was from a more recent litter than me. This was a good thing, in my opinion, as he acted as a sort of handbrake to some of Serafina's more out-of-left-field ideas. We arrived slightly late at Serafina's house. She had already made herself comfortable on her new podium and glared at the three of us for being late. There were even more cats here than usual. I smiled at Cookie, gave a brief nod to Spook, and scanned the room for Winston before sitting down amongst a group of cats who I didn't know that well. A hush came over the attendees while Serafina produced a small bottle of hand sanitizer. Squeak had somehow managed to set her up with a wireless microphone, amplifying the sound of her going through the ritual of spreading sanitizer liberally over her paws before vigorously licking them. This seemed to alarm some of the more timid members of the group. There's alcohol in that sanitizer, whispered Ron, trying not to laugh, and I groaned. This could be an interesting evening.
Tēnā koutou katoa,
she boomed over the speakers, and Lewis, one of the ex-ferals, who had heard something that sounded as though it ended with "go to cat door," made a bolt for it and headed home terrified. Ron, Squeak and I all groaned in unison this time. The last time that Serafina had started a meeting like this, we'd all ended up in an isolation house, which had been a complete disaster. I noticed that 3 other cats were hovering around the Podium of Truth. One was busily forming a combination of shapes with his paws and making a series of facial expressions and body movements while Serafina was speaking. It was most odd. Even odder was the cat sitting next to Serafina with the bright pink fur. Surely that couldn't be her natural colour. In contrast, the other cat was beige and looked nondescript to the point of being boring.
Most of you will not be surprised to learn that the Diamond Harbour Community Facebook page has once again received an overwhelming number of negative posts and comments regarding cats.
This was nothing new. Cats regularly appeared on the group page, and her proclamation sparked a general hubbub of discussion, mainly cats talking among themselves, but I heard louder cries of, "What about dogs leaving their mess on people's lawns?" And "What about sheep and cows escaping from their paddocks and wandering on the road?" I was quite certain that I caught Serafina once again using the hand sanitizer before she raised her paw and resumed speaking. According to reports, there has been a significant increase in the number of bird deaths in the community, leading to the widespread belief that cats are to blame. Overnight, 9 birds were found dead, with 5 of them belonging to the same family. Witnesses have reported seeing these birds near a group of cats on the Godley House grounds on the evening of Saturday, March 5th. It is believed that this cluster of birds had flown together from Purau just after dawn on the same morning. "Flock," remarked Squeak. A hush went over the group, unaccustomed to hearing Squeak using coarse language. "A group of birds is called a flock, not a cluster." Squeak, as always, insisted on proper grammar and correct word use. "Perhaps it's a cluster flock," said Ron with a wry smile.
Since then, I've been informed of 3 further blackbird deaths, 7 sparrows who are isolating, and 2 keruru currently receiving veterinary attention. Cats are thought to be the sole cause of these tragedies, as none of the birds had any underlying health conditions. It is believed that these events are linked to the gathering on the evening of Saturday, March 5th. We need to act with an abundance of caution to stamp this out, and the team of 5 million cats will need to go hard and go fast.
Ron leered and started making a pumping action with his paw before being silenced by a withering look from Serafina.
Therefore, in accordance with public health advice, we will be moving to the red traffic light setting from 11:59 on Friday.
Questions erupted from the audience. What did red traffic light settings mean? Why wait until Friday? Where was the team of 5 million cautious cats coming from? How long will this last? On and on it went, but the only question that Serafina seemed interested in was ensuring she used the appropriate traffic management analogy. After much discussion, we finally settled on having zebra crossing settings, since there weren't any traffic lights in Diamond Harbour, and, as Prudence pointed out, there was a zebra crossing situated near the school. Satisfied with this, Serafina laid out the rules under our new system. It's a well-known fact that cats possess a natural hunting instinct. To satisfy this urge, you may pursue rats, mice, stoats and other rodents without restriction. To view a comprehensive list of unregulated hunting options, please visit the website. Birds, however, are a different matter, and we must slow the spread, or preferably stop completely any murderous inclinations you might have by using these zebra crossing settings. At Red, it is our responsibility to safeguard our vulnerable species, which means the following rules are mandatory. 1. You must wear your collar at all times. 2. You must wear approved bird protection equipment, BPE, whenever you venture into public outdoor areas. This includes wearing gauntlets on all 4 paws, which can be made of metal, rubber, leather, or a combination of these materials. Alternatively, you can discuss with your owner the option of getting yourself declawed. 3.
A BPE mask must be worn to prevent your mouth from opening when outside. This must be an approved mask. Note that scarves, bandanas, or a collar pulled up over your mouth will not be considered as valid alternatives. 4. You must be microchipped with a chip that shows your vaccination status. This may require you to have a second microchip inserted. 5. Fully vaccinated cats are permitted to connect with loved ones, but only outdoors. No more than 2 households can gather at a time, and this is limited to a maximum of 10 cats. You must not walk through a house to access the backyard or to use the dirt box. I remind you that failure to comply with these regulations may result in negative consequences.
I wanted to ask how the cat with the pink fur was going to get out to have its fur coloured, but a cat named Barry, who seemed to have a multitude of questions, got in ahead of me.
Just one question, Heather. Serafina. If we aren't allowed to access the backyard or a dirt box, where do we go to relieve ourselves?
Serafina gave him a rather frightening smile, then said,
I'll double back to you if you don't mind, Brian, but for now, I'm going to hand over to Ashley to explain the vaccination rollout.
With that, she re-sanitised her paws and stepped aside to allow the beige cat to take his place on the podium.
Kia ora koutou katoa,
He began.
Serafina has asked me to speak to you this evening about a new vaccine that has been developed that will successfully break the chain of evolution and prevent cats from attacking birds. This will stop the spread of exposure events such as last Saturday's massacre from taking place. It will be mandatory for each and every one of you to have your first dose of the vaccine by the end of this month, followed by a second dose 2 weeks later. Once you have received your second dose, your healthcare provider will insert a state-of-the-art microchip. This microchip will activate your cat door, enabling you to enter and exit your home. It will also be a mandatory requirement when visiting cafes and bars, attending gatherings and events, going to your groomer, or to the vet. Once you've had 2 doses of the vaccine, you will need to have a booster shot every...
He seemed to stumble slightly, and he looked at Serafina, who gave a brief nod.
Every once in a while.
This produced an overwhelming swell of questions from the group, and Barry, or was it Brian, looked ready to jump out of his fur.
Is it possible to get a vaccine exemption?
He questioned.
Thank you, Barry,
said Ashley tentatively.
You may be eligible for an exemption, but this will have to be signed off by 3 veterinary surgeons, the owners of both of your birth parents, a kaumatua, and a justice of the peace.
What about side effects?
Said Barry, who was clearly on a roll.
Has the vaccine been thoroughly tested?
Clinical trials have been conducted on animal models, including marmosets, hamsters, and 8 mice,
replied Ashley.
The vaccine has proved safe and effective with an efficacy range of over 95%.
Winston, who seemed to appear from under the floorboards, addressed the crowd. His face was inscrutable as he narrowed his eyes and said,
Surely this is due to the fact that none of those animals are remotely interested in preying on birds.
He had a good point, I thought. Furthermore, continued Winston, what clear and convincing forensic evidence do you possess that proves beyond reasonable doubt that cats are guilty of these bird deaths?
Dirtbox testing is being conducted on a daily basis, said Ashley. Dirtbox samples collected since the March 5th outbreak have proved conclusively that cats are implicated in these deaths, with traces of feathers being found in the stool samples.
Have you done a flock count?
Said Smokey O'Neill. A what? Giggled Ron.
Not personally, but flock counts have been conducted in around locations of interest such as the Godley House grounds, Ashley replied. It's a fascinating fact that estimating flock sizes can be ridiculously difficult when birds are flying in 3-dimensional space. For example, If a large blackbird flock is 100 birds wide, 100 birds long, and 100 birds deep...
Mercifully, Serafina held up a paw at this point and took over the microphone.
Before we get too bogged down with the flock count process, I'd like to introduce you to Susie.
She stepped aside as the cat with the pink fur made her way to the podium.
Susie, who was awarded Cat of the Year in 2021, will speak to you tonight to provide further information on the initiatives being put in place to stamp out this problem.
Kia ora,
began Susie.
I want to start off by explaining the need for cats to wear approved bird protection equipment, or BPE. As you're all no doubt aware, birds are airborne, so they fly through the air and can enter shared space with cats at will. This means that there is a massive risk of one landing near a cat who is feral, or a domestic cat who's simply hungry or feeling playful. Some of these birds may already have underlying health conditions or injuries, and if a bird such as this gets out into the community, there's a chance for massive carnage, because once a cat has successfully caught and killed a bird, they get a taste for it and spread the news amongst their friends and whānau. Therefore, copycat bird killings can become endemic in the community. For the good of everybody, wearing your BPE when you're out of your home will be mandatory under the red zebra crossing settings. Try to think of it as not only protecting wildlife as a whole, but protecting you from yourself as well.
She nodded her head sagely, as though everyone in the room had fully grasped the gravity of the situation and was eager to comply with these peculiar regulations. I looked around and I was pretty sure nobody was. Susie, however, was undeterred and continued relentlessly.
Under the red zebra crossing settings, cats should maintain a distance of at least 2 metres to prevent cats from gathering at the end of their driveways to discuss their latest bird assassinations. You must also refrain from singing while we're in the red setting. This obviously excludes the mandatory requirement that you sing Happy Birthday twice while washing your paws after using the dirt box.
I was rather relieved to hear Barry ask what I thought was an obvious question.
Surely, since most cats clean their paws by licking themselves?
Except for my sister Serafina, cut in Winston, as Serafina energetically lathered up the hand sanitizer once again. Ignoring Winston, Barry continued.
Wouldn't it be somewhat difficult to sing the mandatory song once, let alone twice?
I think you'll find that performing an action such as singing while cleaning one's paws would be virtually impossible, said Squeak, who approached the podium as though he'd been brought in as an expert singing witness. Dismissing Squeak's concerns, Serafina returned to the podium.
Until such time as the ruthless avian genocide epidemic is eliminated, there will be a significant increase in your vet bills. I have taken proactive measures to combat this problem by implementing the RAGE Subsidy Scheme, which will cover your owner for excess veterinary costs incurred during this time. In conclusion, I urge you to stay vigilant in order to protect our environment and those who inhabit it. Let us stand united and rise to the challenge. Now, we're happy to take your questions. Yes, Tova.
Who the hell was Tova? Some of these cats I didn't know that well, but I'd be prepared to bet money that none of them were called Tova. I glanced at the hand sanitizer bottle again and noticed that it was nearly empty.
This is exactly how Nazi Germany started, snarled Winston, looking grumpier than ever as he made his exit through the cat.
I motioned to Ron and Squeak. Where the heck has she got all this nonsense from?
She probably fell asleep in front of the television again and missed the whole point of whatever it was she was watching. Either that or she's bought into the conspiracy theories and misinformation she's seen on social media. Who knows, said Ron.
Without warning, Squeak pressed a button on the remote control, and the unmistakable sound of samba music, that seemed to have come straight from a Brazilian beach party, erupted from the portable microphone on Serafina's Podium of Truth. Ron, Squeak and I simultaneously bolted for the cat door. What a nightmare! You've been listening to The Diary of an Orange Cat by Claire Jewitt. If you enjoyed spending time in Weasley's world, please follow the podcast and leave a rating or review. It really helps other listeners to discover the show. Join me next time for another diary entry from Diamond Harbour, where the Ginger Nuts are preparing for a rather important debut. Until then, remember that not every problem requires a podium, an expert with a microphone, and a series of increasingly complicated rules and regulations.